Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday at 1 p.m. This program is broadcast from Rajmakon University of Technology, Pranakon, and we bring this program to you in two parts. For the first part, we will introduce an artist and a song to you. We'll talk a little bit about the artist, and then with the song, we will discuss its main themes. I'll give you a little bit of background on the song, like when it was written, that sort of thing. But I'll also tell you a little bit about what it's about. That's what the theme means, what it's about. So we'll discuss the song's main themes. Then we will go ahead and listen to the song, and in part two, we will analyze the lyrics. The lyrics are the words to the song, and we will look especially at any difficult vocabulary, slang, or idioms. An idiom is a saying that we use in English. So we'll talk about anything that may be hard to understand. Then we'll have the news and the latest updates from the university, as always.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Gary Gray, and I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an American English teacher here at Rajmakon University of Technology, Pranakon. I've been teaching here for 7, almost 8 years now, and I do like to incorporate music into my teaching sometimes, and so here we are with a music program for you, in which we will discuss some English. So for today's episode of Musical Musings, we are going to be doing the song Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton. First, a little bit of information about Eric Clapton. He was born in 1945 in England, so that means he will be turning 80 this year. Is that correct? Yes, 80. Had to think about that. So he is still alive. He does still perform. But he is getting a little bit old. He'll be turning 80 this year. He began his career at the age of 18 in 1963 with a band called the Yardbirds. And he really played with several bands before going solo. We are really talking about his solo career here. That's why I said we're doing a song by Eric Clapton. It's just him. Obviously, there may be a backing band, like if there's drums or other instruments or things like that. But as far as singing, it's really just him. There's not a whole other band around him, other than, again, maybe some backing instruments. So this is him when he's solo. That's what we're doing today. But he did play with several bands before going solo, not just the Yardbirds. And some of them became pretty famous. The Yardbirds were pretty famous. Cream was very famous. And even Derek and the Dominoes, who were only around for about a year or two, they're still pretty well known. So he was with other bands other than those three. Those are just the three that are probably the most famous. I say probably. There's one or two others that made a name for themselves. They weren't just nobodies, just some random band. No, they had a name for themselves. But I think, just in my opinion, the Yardbirds, Cream, and Derek and the Dominoes were probably the three most popular bands that Eric Clapton was with before he went solo. I would say Cream was probably the most popular of those, but again, debatable. All right, so one important thing to note is that even though we're talking about his solo career, some of the songs that he performs in his solo career were songs that he brought over from some of the bands he was with. One of his most famous songs, for example, is Layla. Layla, Layla, Layla. That he brought over from Derek and the Dominoes. Derek and the Dominoes performed that, and about roughly 4 years, three to 4 years after Derek and the Dominoes broke up, Eric Clapton recorded Layla solo. He also does a lot of cover songs. Now, what a cover is when you sing a song that was originally done by another performer. That may sound less original, less creative. Honestly, it happens a lot more than we think. There are some very popular songs that a lot of people don't know are covers. Whitney Houston's song, And I Will Always Love You, very famous song. Most of you, even if you don't know a lot of English language music, most of you probably know that song. Most people at the time did not know it was even a cover. Now, because it was pretty popular by the person who sang it before her, some people knew. But still, a lot of people didn't. It was sung before her by Dolly Parton, but many years before. So that, for example, is a cover song, and that's Whitney Houston's number one song. She had a lot of big songs. She's very famous, very popular. Honestly, we haven't done her on this program because, if I'm honest, I don't really like her that much, which is... which upsets a lot of people, given how much they know I love music, and then I say I don't like Whitney Houston. I mean, come on. She's one of the most famous singers ever. I have some issues with the way she sings, so she's not one of my favorite singers. Anyway, that was her most famous song, and that is a cover song. So there's nothing wrong with doing covers. In fact, we already have our schedule planned out for next week's song, for next week's program. And for next week's program, we're going to be doing an artist who does mostly cover songs. There's a few songs that are her originals, but mostly cover songs. Okay, so an example of a cover song, Eric Clapton doing Layla is not really a cover song because he did it with Derek and the Dominoes. It's kind of his song. But he also is very famous for the song I Shot the Sheriff. That's originally a Bob Marley song. Bob Marley does like reggae, Jamaican style music. And that's where that song comes from. Eric Clapton just performed it. Did a good job with it. Became very popular. I'm pretty certain Eric Clapton's version got a lot more popular than Bob Marley's version did. I have to say I'm pretty sure because Bob Marley's pretty popular too. So his version probably got quite popular as well. But Eric Clapton is a bigger name than Bob Marley, and I know that I Shot the Sheriff is one of Eric Clapton's biggest hits. So pretty sure that got bigger than Bob Marley's version. Okay, but he did still write a lot of songs of his own as well. So, again, I don't want to take anything away from him because he did covers and he took things from his old bands and stuff like that. Some people might think that I'm kind of bringing him down a notch because he did stuff like that. No. As I said, a lot of bands do that. A lot of performers do that. A lot of artists do that. More than people even realize. Because sometimes they'll pick an old, obscure song that they're going to cover. So it's a song that nobody's really ever heard. And they figure, oh, well, with my twist on it, it'll become popular. And sometimes it does. And so this popular song was a cover of some other song that nobody's heard. And so they kind of get away with people thinking it's their own song when it never was. So that happens a lot with songs that you hear, especially a lot of modern songs are kind of almost written like factory style, so they're not very good. But if you're talking about some older songs, especially really good songs, they may just be cover songs. Also, a lot of artists don't even write their own songs. They get songs written for them. which is not necessarily a bad thing. That sounds bad, right? Because you're not being very creative. But, I mean, it might be a friend of theirs. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well in next week's episode. Again, I have next week's episode all planned. We'll talk about that a little bit next week as well. So that's not uncommon. You might have a buddy you team up with to write stuff. It's not uncommon, and there's nothing wrong with that. So again, I'm not trying to bring Eric Clapton down a little bit by saying he does cover songs or songs written by other people, songs from his old band. No, that's fine. In fact, to his credit, not only did he write some of his own songs, including one of his most popular, which is "Tears in Heaven." Because that's about his son having passed away. But he's also thought of by most as one of the best guitarists ever. I'll be honest with you, I don't view him that way. Most of his songs are fairly slow. And as someone who plays guitar myself, and I do not play well at all, I play a limited number of chords, and I can't move my fingers very fast, I can tell you how much easier it is to play a slower song when you have that extra tenth of a second to move your fingers. Makes it a lot easier. Some of these guitarists I see moving their fingers like crazy. I mean, I guess it's years and years and years of practice. I couldn't see myself ever doing that. So I honestly don't really consider Eric Clapton one of the best guitarists ever, but most people do. So I'm in the minority there. Most people think he's one of the best ever. In fact, I just saw a list of the top guitarists, and I think he was rated number 5 or number 6 all time, which is pretty high because there are some really good guitarists out there. So he's rated right up there, top 10, all time. Okay, so my point about all that is it doesn't matter that he's taking songs from other people. Everyone does that. Everyone does that. All right, so his genre of music is almost exclusively just rock. Sometimes, because, like I said, he does a lot of slower songs, if they're kind of sad and slower, they kind of have a blues feel to them. I Shot the Sheriff, because that was originally done by Bob Marley, has a little bit of a reggae feel to it. So there is some crossover there. I talk about that a lot on this program, how I don't even really like to talk about genres. I do it all the time because people ask, oh, well, what genre of music do they do? So you got to answer them. But most artists have a lot of crossover in their genres, which is why I don't even like talking about it. Music is creative. It's supposed to cross genres. You play what you want to play and hope that it just becomes popular. Hopefully what you're wanting to play is what people want to listen to. So most artists don't have like one strict genre that they focus on. Eric Clapton kind of does. It's rock. And a lot of it's maybe soft on the softer side of rock. It's not all soft rock. I Shot the Sheriff is not, I certainly wouldn't call it hard rock or heavy metal, but it's kind of just standard rock. That's just rock. And he does have quite a few songs like that, but like the song we're doing today, Wonderful Tonight, that's kind of soft rock. I wouldn't say it's bluesy. Most blues songs are kind of sad. In fact, that's where the word comes from. Blue, when you feel blue, it means you're feeling sad. That's where the word blues comes from. Wonderful Tonight is kind of a just nice, sweet love song. All right, and so speaking of that, let's get to this. Let's get to talking about the song a little bit. We're doing Wonderful Tonight. It was written in 1974 and released in 1977. As I just mentioned, it was it's just a simple love song, really. It's written about his girlfriend at the time, who I believe he eventually got married to, but I'm pretty sure it was his girlfriend at the time, Pattie Boyd. They were waiting to have a party. They were waiting to go to an annual party that I think Paul McCartney throws. And so they're talking about, the song is about going to a party. it peaked at number 16 in the U.S. It was released, I think, in the late 1977 because it peaked in 1978, actually, in the U.S. And that's probably one of Eric Clapton's higher performing songs, but I would say almost certainly not his top. I didn't look up where all of his different songs landed on the chart, but I have to imagine Tears in Heaven actually might have reached the top briefly. It's a very good song. Layla was probably pretty high up there. I Shot the Sheriff was probably really high up there. So this probably was not his top song, but it was among one of his best songs. It was up there. And it's another example, even though this isn't his top song, it's another example of artists coming out with some of their best music early. Doesn't always happen. Didn't even always happen with Eric Clapton. I've mentioned Tears in Heaven. That came out, I want to say, in 1991. Almost certain it was in the 1990s. So that's much later. That's way down the road. But like Layla, he got that from when he was with Derek and the Dominoes. That's before he was even a solo artist. This song doesn't seem like it came out early in his career, right? Released in 1977, late in the year, hit the charts in 1978, and he started his career in 1963. That's like 14, 15 years later. But you got to remember, a lot of that time he was with bands. So we're talking about him as a solo artist. He released his first solo album in 1970, but so then you can say, well, that's still 7 years later. That's still not early in his career. But hold on, is it not really? After his first solo album, he actually went back with bands. He was with a couple of bands. In fact, Derek and the Dominoes came after that. So he really pretty much began in full force his solo career right around 1973, 74, somewhere around there. And even though this was released in 1977, remember what I told you, it was written in 1974. And if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the songs of his that is not a cover. So this is his song, written basically the first year he's a solo artist. I mean, if you don't count that one album in 1970, this is the first year he's a solo artist. So he hits the ground as a solo artist, and boom, Wonderful Tonight, one of his first songs. Again, it wasn't released until a few years later, but he wrote it in 1974. So I do think this qualifies as like an artist, one of their first songs, because these other songs, like Layla, I don't know if he actually wrote that. I don't know. He was with the band. He might have been the person that wrote it for the band. It's possible. Not sure. But it could have been some of the other band members. And certainly the other band members, I'm sure, would have contributed, at least to the musical part of it. So this was one of his first solo songs. Okay? All right, so again, we don't need to talk too much about the main themes of this song. Like I said, it's a very simple love song. It's talking about his girlfriend, and it sounds a little shallow. The word shallow means all you care about is someone's appearances, things like that. It sounds a little bit shallow at first, because he's talking about her long blonde hair and how she looks wonderful. It's all about a beautiful lady, those sort of things. But as we get towards the end of the song, it shows how she's really caring for him, taking care of him. So it's actually more than just her being beautiful. It's more than just her looks. So it's a nice, sweet little love song. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the song. As always, for those of you joining us on YouTube, we cannot embed the video. So we'll give you a link in the upper right-hand corner. Please click on that link for the video. Then after you watch that video, you can just hit the back button, come back here, and watch the rest of this program to go through the lyrics. And For everyone else listening, whether you're on radio or streaming, we can embed the music, so you should be able to listen just fine. All right, let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back, everyone. All right, that was Wonderful Tonight by Eric Clapton, and it's just a very simple song about love. Okay, so this may not be one of the best songs to do for our program. We've had another one of these lately that was almost a little too easy. Next week's is going to be real easy. But, I also like to introduce you to good songs. This is just a good song. So, analyzing the lyrics here is a little simple. There's not too much that's tricky here. Not too much that's difficult to understand. But let's go through it. There may be a few words that are tough. Okay, so let's get started. It's late in the evening. She's wondering what clothes to wear. Nothing difficult there. I will point out the word clothes just for a pronunciation issue. Most of the times when we say that word, it's spelled C-L-O-T-H-E-S. A native English speaker most of the times will pronounce it close, like close the door. Technically, that's not correct. It's just because we're saying it quickly, and it's kind of hard to say th-s together. So it's hard to say clothes. That's how it's pronounced, clothes. So you will often hear us just say clothes. It's late in the evening, she's wondering what clothes to wear. It's pretty much how it's sung, too. Clapton doesn't sing, she's wondering what clothes to wear. No, that would sound weird. So just be aware of that. That word, C-L-O-T-H-E-S-E, is technically pronounced clothes. But most people just pronounce it clothes. Okay. She puts on her makeup and brushes her long blonde hair. Again, shouldn't be anything too difficult there. You may be more familiar with a comb. You're combing your hair. A brush, that's the bigger thing that a lot of women might use because they have bigger, thicker hair, so they might use a brush. I know that Asians tend to have thicker hair than white people do. So even a lot of men here in Thailand, I've noticed, will use a brush because it's good for thicker hair. So that's the big thing you use to do your hair with. It's a brush. So she brushes her long blonde hair. And then as she asks me, do I look all right? And I say, yes, you look wonderful tonight. Again, nothing too difficult. I'll just mention the word all right briefly. A lot of times you will see some people, even some native English speakers, spell that as two words. Because it almost means that. They'll write all right. When we say something's right, we usually mean, is it correct? Like when I give my students a test. I will say the right answer is, that's the correct answer. But to say something is right might just mean it's good as well. Not necessarily correct, just good. So all right would mean everything is good. That's what the word all right means. But all right as one word, all right is just one word. It's A-L-R-I-G-H-T. So just know that. Know that that's not two words, it's one word. Like I said, I've even seen native English speakers split it up and put it into two words. No. I mean, I suppose since that's what it means, if you wrote that, I guess it would mean the same thing. So you could do that, but no, you're not supposed to do that. It's one word. Okay, so we continue on. So yes, then she asked me, do I look all right? And I say, yes, you look wonderful tonight. We go to a party, and everyone turns to see this beautiful lady that's walking around with me. Again, very simple. We go to a party, okay? Everyone turns to see, okay? So that's literal. A lot of times these songs have some phrases or words in there that they mean in a slang way, or they don't mean exactly what they say. No, people actually turn to look at her. Because, ooh, beautiful woman. Ooh, look at her. Yes, everyone turns to see. So there's nothing tricky about that. This beautiful lady that's walking around with me. And then as she asks me, do you feel all right? And I say, yes, I feel wonderful tonight. So that's kind of a repeat of the first time it says that, except it just switches it around. You notice the first time it says, do I look all right? She asks me, do I look all right? Now she's asking, do you feel all right? And he says, yes, I feel wonderful tonight. I feel wonderful because I see the love light in your eyes. Okay, so there we have our first thing that might actually be a little tricky to understand. When we talk about someone having a light in their eyes, it's almost hard to explain because it's almost meant literally, but if you think about that literally, it really doesn't matter. Someone could be sad and they could have a light in their eyes because their eyes could be very watery, so it's going to shine in the light because they're almost ready to cry because they have water in their eyes, they have tears in their eyes, and they could have a light in their eyes. But generally, when someone's a little bit down, maybe it's because their eyes are kind of partly shut, so maybe their eyelids are providing shade. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but people's eyes seem brighter when they're happy and smiling and in a good mood and joyful. So what he's saying here is when you well, first of all, just in general in English, when we say there's a light in your eyes, it means you look alive, you look active, happy. And so he's calling it the love light. So in other words, she's happy because of love. And so he's saying that's why he feels wonderful. He feels wonderful because he's seeing, just from the light in her eyes, that she loves him. So I feel wonderful because I see the love light in your eyes. And the wonder of it all is that you just don't realize how much I love you. Okay, so now what does that mean? When you talk about the wonder of something, it means it's amazing. So what he's saying is that he sees that she loves her, that she loves him. And what's amazing about it, the wonder of it all, what's amazing about all of that, about the fact that he can see how much she loves him, is that she doesn't realize how much he loves her. So he feels wonderful because he knows how much he loves her, and he's seeing that she loves him back. So that's the wonder of it all. The wonder of it all is that you just don't realize how much I love you. So he's saying, I love you back. Okay? And then we continue, and again, it's not just about her looking beautiful. Here's going to be kind of the line about her caring for him, the verse about her caring for him. It's time to go home now, and I've got an aching head. So I give her the car keys, and she helps me to bed. All right, there's nothing tricky really about that. It's time to go home now, okay? I've got an aching head. He has a headache. You can say you have an aching head. They really do that just to make it rhyme, because it says she helps me to bed later. That's the only reason he says I have an aching head rather than I have a headache. It's just for the sake of the song. So I give her the car keys, and then after they're home, obviously, she helps me to bed. I will explain a little bit about what that means. It just means she's taking care of him because he's drunk. I know it never says he's drunk, but in America, it may not be quite as big of a deal here in Thailand. Maybe it should be, because I know driving is much more dangerous here in Thailand. And one of the things that makes it a little more dangerous here is that a lot more people drive after they drink. In America, certainly some people still do that. In fact, it's probably the number one cause of deaths by driving is people who are drunk getting into car accidents. But it is taken a lot more seriously in America. So if you're drunk, most people won't drive. Now, of course, being drunk makes you not think right, and so that's why some people still drive even when they're drunk. But most people don't. And so you give someone else your car keys so they can drive you home. So that's what this is about. He gives her the car keys. And it says he has an aching head. You know, you're drunk. Sometimes you get a headache. Yeah. He's drunk. So this is about her taking care of him when he's drunk. She drives home because he gives her the car keys. And then she helps him to bed. She helps me to bed. Okay? And then we finish the song. And then I tell her, sorry. The way I'm familiar with the lyrics, it's then as I tell her. But then we have as again. As I turn out the light, I say, my darling, you are wonderful tonight. Oh, my darling, you are wonderful tonight. So you notice there, it doesn't say you look. It says you are. And I think that's important because it comes right after the verse where she's helping him. So again, it's emphasizing that this isn't just about the fact that she's beautiful. Oh, look, I have this sexy woman. You know, some guys are like that. Yeah, you know, they have, in America, we would call that like a trophy wife, if it's their wife. And it's usually this old man walking around with this really hot, cute, beautiful young woman. He's just doing it to show off that he has this sexy girlfriend, and she's probably only with him because he has money. So they're trying to emphasize that that's not the case here. This is about love. So we get to that, and you notice how we get to that verse right after we had that part where it was like with the wonder of it all and everything like that. Right after that, right after they talk about how much they love each other, we get to that verse of her taking care of him and then him saying, you are wonderful tonight. Okay? And that's the song. It's a pretty easy song. Okay. So after we do each song, usually every week I like to talk about other good songs by certain artists. Eric Clapton's been around a long time. Even if you only consider his solo career, which started around 1974. As I said, he did have the one album in 1970, but basically started around 1974. Even if you just consider that, that's still 50 years ago. He's still performing today. I don't know how much longer he'll perform. I don't know really how active he is because he's almost 80 years old. So I don't know how much he's still performing, but he is performing. He's still active. All right, so he's been around a long time, so he has a lot of great songs. So I'm just going to mention a few to you that are some of my favorite songs or that are some of the most popular songs by him. We mentioned Layla earlier, and we mentioned I Shot the Sheriff earlier. He also has Black Magic Woman, Tears in Heaven, Sweet Home Chicago, Change the World, I Can't Stand It, Lay Down Sally, and After Midnight. Now, some of those, even though they're popular, they may not be my favorite. Like, I Can't Stand It, I don't know. There's something about that song that doesn't seem like Eric Clapton's style. I don't know. It's not one of my favorites, but it's a popular song. You might like it. Go ahead and listen to it. My favorite songs by him are Wonderful Tonight. That's one of the reasons we did it today. The two songs I mentioned before, Layla and I Shot the Sheriff. I also mentioned Tears in Heaven before. That's another one of my favorite ones by him. I also like After Midnight. There are other songs by him I like. Those are just some of my favorites by him. So go ahead and look up more of his music if you like this song. He has a lot of great songs out there. Again, his name is Eric Clapton, And that's it for Eric. Thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and make sure you tune back in next week for another great song. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical musings, musical